Hey guys, John the Morgal here, checking in for a new Flat Earth video for you. Hope you do enjoy it today. Thanks so much for joining, and we'll just get right into it. We live in a culture where the most popular religion is comprised of people who refuse to realize they are members of a church, or even admit there is a church, the Church of Scientism. Instead of priests, deacons, bishops, or popes, there are varying degrees of pontificates who claim to be practitioners of the scientific method, but are actually quite the opposite, regurgitators of a rigid belief system largely based on faith, scientism. The scientific method is a logical process of discernment, which is effective only if the emotions of the observer are left at the door, so to speak. True science is independent of popular opinion or the whims and druthers of those involved in the process. We're led to believe that all of the technological advancements throughout history, especially during the so-called space age, are a direct result of science. While this may be true-ish, it isn't the truth. Science has indeed played a critical role in many technological advancements. However, human ingenuity, dumb luck, and borrowing from nature, or natural phenomenon, are but a few avenues followed during the advancement of technology. Theoretical astrophysics, for one example, has never directly contributed towards any practical or physically applicable technology, and should thus be placed under the banner of scientism. In fact, the very phrase theoretical physics is an oxymoron, in that physics involves physical objects which are directly measurable, observable, demonstrable, and falsifiable, while theoretical things or things of fantasy simply do not fall under that category at all. Scientism is like a chameleon, hiding behind the practical advancements achieved by actual applied science. For example, many Globers will point to the fact that cellular phones work as proof positive of the existence of satellites. The chain of so-called logic here is basically, my cell phone works, therefore the Earth is a spinning ball in outer space, complete with orbiting satellites. The fact is, satellites are exactly science fiction, originally fabricated by a science fiction author, Arthur C. Clarke. The technologies attributed to satellites were achieved using terrestrial, low-technology solutions long before any space program was in existence. The US military was using high-altitude weather balloons to achieve essentially all of the functions now attributed to satellites. This was before World War II. Satellites were obsolete before they were ever allegedly created, as the cost and risks involved were simply not practical when we realized the very same functions can be adequately met by arrays of high-altitude weather balloons. Furthermore, satellites rely upon the Earth being a spinning ball in outer space in the first place, which is the opposite of reality. Any attempt to measure for the Earth's rotational or orbital velocities returns null results. This means the Earth is measurably at rest. Any attempt to measure the Earth for curvature, furthermore, returns similar results, meaning the Earth couldn't possibly be a sphere. By stark, plain definition, the Earth is a stationary plane, quite the opposite of a spinning sphere. Arrays of high-altitude weather balloons could easily act as the network hubs to achieve the ends allegedly met by satellites for a fraction of the cost, not to mention the risk. And of course, when faced with the reality of Earth's true nature, it becomes clear that the notion of orbiting satellites will never cross over from the realm of science fiction into the realm of actual science. Since the Earth is a stationary plane and outer space simply could not possibly exist, the concept of satellites is exactly fantasy. Not only are they an impossibility, satellites are completely unnecessary, and all the allegations made by space agencies, aka the lie factories, are simply ridiculous. For example, it's claimed by the lie factories that the geosynchronous satellites are more than 20,000 miles in altitude. The concept of transmitting RF signals across such distances is among the most absurd, unbelievable lies submitted by the space scam. The fact that cellular phones function is a testament to many human achievements. However, satellites are unfortunately not on that list. The hidden cultural manipulators have done an excellent job of marrying people to the fictitious concept of space. Starting in the 1950s and 1960s, there began a campaign to popularize and really glamorize the concept of infinite space. With television shows like Lost in Space and Star Trek, and hordes of films both classic and terrible, the subliminal controllers of popular opinion were hard at work cementing the idea of space into our very culture. Most people have never considered or care to admit that many of their ideas are not actually their own, but have instead been installed into them by people they've never met or even heard of. This is a scary thought, but the proof is blatant for anyone with an open mind to observe. Space has been so romanticized by pop culture, it is difficult to separate many people from this completely erroneous paradigm. This is a testament to the effectiveness of subliminal programming on a massive scale, using the television programming in tandem with the federal educational system, as well as military programs like NASA. Most people defend the concept of space, yet they've never been to space, and in fact, space doesn't exist. The idea of infinite space is inherently tied to the ball Earth theory. When the world is shown to lack all curvature and rotational motion, the concept of infinite space goes right out the window with the ball. While the stationary plane reality may not be able to answer every last question as to what exactly are the heavenly luminaries amongst others, we know for certain that the heavenly luminaries are not the spherical bodies the distances purported by the mainstream. It is clear, for example, that the sun could not possibly be some 90 million miles away. The generally accepted numbers are allegedly traced back to the ancient Greek Eratosthenes, who is claimed to have calculated the circumference of the spherical Earth. The problem with Eratosthenes' numbers is found in his main premise. The trigonometry used by Eratosthenes relied upon the light traveling from the sun being perfectly rectilinear. This is of course absurd, as we now know that light does absolutely not travel in straight lines forever, especially when traveling through temperature or density gradients, both of which are present in the space between the sun and the Earth, amongst other perturbances such as the magnetic field of the Earth. So what Eratosthenes deemed curvature of the Earth was actually curvature of the light traveling from the sun towards the objects found in Syene and Alexandria some 2,000 years ago, allegedly. This is to say that Eratosthenes' numbers are only accurate if we assume light only ever always travels in straight line paths, which simply couldn't be the case, deeming the numbers gleaned by Eratosthenes' so-called experiment null and void. It is agreed by both sides of this argument that the world is indeed a fixed frame of reference. This is to say that no acceleration has ever been detected or measured by anyone, ever. This simple, undebatable fact is proof positive that the Earth is in fact at rest. Think about it. When the sun is rising, the observer would be standing on the nose of speeding bullet Earth, traveling at some 66,600 miles per hour, allegedly. Then, as the sun sets, the same observer would be standing on the tail of bullet Earth, allegedly having accelerated to 66,600 miles per hour in the opposite direction relative to him, the observer. If one can honestly claim, with a straight face, that a total relative acceleration of over 130,000 miles per hour during a 12-hour period or less is equivalent to zero acceleration, then they are completely deluded and should really reconsider the concepts involved with the static plane truth. The world is measurably at rest and doesn't display curvature, especially over vast distances over bodies of water. The sea is in fact level. It isn't just some abstract term to describe the mean level around a hypothetical sphere, but indeed, the water in all the oceans is more or less level, depending on barometric pressure at that given area. Furthermore, the world presents itself ubiquitously as a perfectly fixed frame of reference. This is because the world is at rest, certainly not flying through space along multiple curvilinear paths while rotating. That notion is quite simply asinine, absurd. Anyone who cannot see this has been mentally blinded by the allures of the cultural mind control manipulators, whose tactics are for one ultimate purpose. That is, to sever our connection to our Creator, the Most High, and His creation, the spiritual realm within which exists everything. By disconnecting us from our true source and hiding our origins from us, the culture at large is far more easily manipulated by those in control, who would see the status quo remain intact indefinitely for several reasons. When we realize that our world is quite unique in all of creation, it is a sobering thought. The pop cultural phenomenon of infinite space would have the world as just one of many, ultimately insignificant so-called planets in a vast sea full of other solar systems and galaxies. The truth is, there is nothing like the Earth in all of creation, and it could indeed extend far beyond the borders known to us misled people, cordoned off in the center of our little sector of the known plane. Sitcoms like Star Trek would have us believe that the final frontier is space, when in fact it could be much, much closer, the frontier that is. We honestly do not know what lies beyond the known area called Earth, but it should be humanity's combined effort to explore beyond what has been hidden from us by the fictitious ball and space theory. Our collective misunderstanding of reality is the only true barrier between our civilization and the actual frontier, which could be a far cry from anything final. Alright guys, that wraps up the video for today. I hope you did enjoy it. I just want to give real quick a big thanks and shout out to Brenda for sending the laptop computer. Thank you so much, Brenda. As y'all may or may not know, my computer was stolen a couple months ago, so couldn't have done anything without your help there. Also, a big thanks and shout out to Daryl for your help, man, and really everybody that's been supportive of the channel, everybody that's been able to help out. God bless you guys and thank you so much. So again, that wraps up the video. There will be more to come, and we'll see you in the next video. As always, God bless you guys. Thanks for watching, and spread the word, spread the world. Peace out, everybody.